I've hit rock bottom. This is the first time I've ever tried to open a bottle with this Kershaw Shuffle. Oh shit. Hey Wastelanders, this is Gary, and you just saw the intro, one of the two intros that I've been plagued with deciding I would go through. So if you want to see the other, check out after the review, well not review, the talk, the video at the end. So anyway, today I've been feeling like I went with the, well, I did the right thing. I made my choice of 5 knives that make me happy. Sort of like, I said it, and I believe I said it in the video, after 2020. So I didn't become a collector till probably after 2020. So all my knives are kind of modern, you know, from 2020 on. I probably mentioned it in the past, I don't know, in maybe my intro video, but I've had knives all my life, ever since Cub Scouts. Not probably any name brand knives until I got to maybe the age of, I don't know what age you are as a sophomore or junior in high school. I started picking up some name brand knives when I become a sophomore or junior. But still, I wasn't a knife collector. All my knives I pretty much used. So these are 5 knives that make me happy before I started taking seriously knife collecting. This is the poor ass lanyard I had on the Ambitious. I don't know what knot this is. But I carried this knife and used this lanyard for like forever. So I'll start with the Ambitious. So this was a favorite knife of mine, and yeah, I couldn't barely open it before this video, before I cleaned it. So depending on what intro I selected, you'll see it at the end or at the beginning. But I cleaned this knife, and this knife was so filthy. It was the bronze washers. I had to I used 2000 grit sandpaper, wet sandpaper, and I polished washers all up, and I had to use a little bit on the blade and the scales, the underside of the scales, because there was so much gunk, even alcohol didn't take it off, so I had to like lightly sand it off. It was so gunked up. So, and then I took time to reverse the pocket clip. I really didn't care. In the old days, I would carry pocket knives tip down, but I prefer them tip up now. So I finally reversed the pocket clip, and as you can see in some pictures, it was all gunked, and the scales had a pocket clip, ghost of a pocket clip shadow, or maybe they were clean under the pocket clip. They were pretty dirty. I don't know. But anyway, this knife I carried, I've probably carried this knife a lot all through work. This was my work knife. I'm a graphic designer, but so I had to dress up all the time. But in order to not scare people, I always carried this Ambitious. This is the baby brother of the Tenacious, and I really like this Ambitious. I'm afraid I'm going to do a long video, so let's put the Ambitious down. Everybody's familiar with Ambitious. I at some point I broke the tip off. You probably can't tell, but yeah, I've had, like I said, I've had this knife sharpened professionally once, and that's it. It's probably semi-sharp. If I carried this, I would probably sharpen it up, but I don't. I retired this knife pretty much. So let's go over. Yeah, let's go over an old one. This knife is, I started carrying. This is the Kershaw 1050, and this is a knife I bought myself. I think it was a sophomore or junior in high school. So this is probably my oldest good-looking knife. It always made me happy. This brass, I always cleaned, so it shows a little patina, but if you let it go, it will turn green. That's how bad it will look. But over the years, I always polished it up with Brasso, so it's probably doesn't look old, but it is old. So it's the 1050, and this is Kershaw when they did their logo a little differently. Oregon, USA by Kai, Japan. I looked it up. This is I'm pretty sure this is Oz 8 steel. Oh man. I always clean the blade, the fingerprints off the blade, because I love this knife. This is one of my favorite knives. I've since lost the sheath. It kind of got abused and fell apart. And I kind of lost it because I carried this knife so much. I really was a worker knife. I mean, I don't know how many people can tell you that they use this knife so much that the sheath fell apart. And it was a good sheath, but it wore out because I carried it on my belt, and I carried it in high school. And I had to hide it in high school, but it was a knife that I would use to defend myself. So, yeah. I once held this knife to a guy's throat, and it tasted blood. But that's the old me. But anyway, I haven't been this old Gary since I had kids. The old Gary is gone. All right. So that's two knives that make me happy, and let's show you another knife that makes me happy. This is the CRKT Fulcrum Flame. That knife has always made me happy. So I know it looks like a gas station knife, but it's a cool gas station knife. Who can make a better gas station knife than CRKT? So I've always liked this knife. I alone like this knife just because of the laser cut CRKT in the blade that goes through the blade. They don't make these knives like that anymore. This is the Fulcrum Flame. It's a 7406K. I think K stands for color, because there's a black and white version. So everything that you see is color. It's like a silver or something. And I think the other versions have a satin blade. I had to sneeze. Okay. Yeah, I've cleaned this knife a lot. I've taken it apart, and this is a dust collector, so I often take this knife, I pull out this knife and admire it, and then clean it up. I've loved these flames, and I love this flame pocket clip. Everything about this knife makes me extremely happy. for the, so you can't flip it out. You just have to like use this Fulcrum, I don't know what it's called. This, you push the front scales and finish it up by squeezing it together, and this is a lockup. It's a liner lock, so this knife makes me extremely happy. It has some use on the blade. It's not mint. I don't know if I've had it sharpened, because I couldn't sharpen this blade myself. So, but I don't think I've carried it a lot, and I've cut stuff, but I don't think I've had it sharpened. But anyway, this is the third knife that makes me extremely happy, and let's go with another oldie. Again, this is CRKT, and these knives are my adult knives, other than this the 1050. So I carried this knife, the CRKT Ryan Model 7. So let's give you some information. I don't think I mentioned the Fulcrum Flame is Oz 8 steel, and it was designed by Tom Stokes. I don't know what else he designed, but I wanted to give you a little bit of information with the knives. This knife was designed by Steve Ryan, and he still designs knives. I've tried to contact him through Instagram to learn about this knife. I believe it's Oz 8 steel too, but it says 8CR 14 MOV, but I have 5 versions of this knife, and I have a couple in gun cases. I thought this knife was cool, so in my padded gun case, I would put this version of the knife. I don't know, just to be cool. I don't know. So I thought this knife was very cool. So this knife features the lock system. So basically, you can make a fixed blade out of it. So it's just a system that goes behind the scales or behind the liner, so you can't disengage it. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? It's just a little piece of metal that goes behind the liner. But yeah, some people don't really like this knife because of the large thumb studs, but I do. I should have dug out the oldest version that I have, because it shows all kinds of wear on the blade, but I'm too lazy. This case is kind of buried in the closet, and I just wanted a quick one, so I pulled out this knife out of a drawer. So, and this knife is pretty much doesn't show anywhere, because I probably just bought it just as a backup. So I've never used this knife, this version of the knife. So yeah, that's enough what I said about this. And my favorite, it's hard to say this is not my favorite, because I've carried this knife the second longest. This is probably the third longest, and this knife, the Kershaw Knockout, is probably the longest knife I've carried. This is the version with LMAX steel. I bought it on the secondary market, and apparently this version is I don't know. There's not many versions of this knife. I don't have numbers. Maybe they could be like 5,000. I don't know. But when I picked it up on the secondary market, I remember like 2 knives being available at the time, and I probably paid a pretty penny for this. I I probably paid more than what it's worth, like twice as much as it's worth. I don't remember the exact cost, but it was like maybe in the $200 range. But I've already had the Knockout. I bought the first Knockout when it was released, and I really dig this blade shape. This knife came off as a mean looking knife, a knife that I could use in a fight, you know. Since then, becoming a collector, I've taken a real shine to ZT knives, but I can't afford a ZT knife. So I'm glad this was I think this was my first ZT knife without it being a ZT knife. I don't think Kershaw at the time made knives this cool until this came out. For me, I mean, this is a cool knife. Don't get me wrong. This is CRKT. But this knife is very... I know people have a problem with assisted knives, but I really like... This is an assisted knife I like. I've come to like a couple other assisted knives, but... and don't get me wrong, I really like non-assisted knives, but this knife is, I don't know, it's just a call. It was calling out to me. You must own this knife, and you must own this knife in the best steel available. I think 14C28N was the best steel. It is a great steel. But I think they only released it in LMAX as a super steel before they eventually released it in like M380 or M390. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm partially I partially have a buzz going. So because I've been drinking too early. But anyway, yeah, so this is my five, yeah, you could tell this is my favorite knife because I have the Stormtrooper bead on there, and I had to wire it through. Like, oh man, this is the biggest disappointment in the Kershaw Knockout. It's almost like they like say, oh, let's give you a screw hole for a lanyard hole. But alright, let's get these knives there. So if I had to rank the knives of my favorite, I know I said this was my favorite, but I would probably rank this knife because this is a knife I bought with as a kid, you know. This knife is my second favorite. In all honestly, I think the order is like this. I really like this Spyderco Ambitious, and this knife I didn't carry much, but I just like looking at it. So I probably shouldn't drink before the video, but yeah, I'm feeling a little depressed. So anyway, this is my 5 knives that make me happy before 2020, before I became a knife collector. Take care, Wastelanders. This is the first time I've ever taken the Spyderco Ambitious apart. See how dirty it was? This is pre my I don't know, being a knife collector. So I have to clean all this up. It could be worse, but yeah, it's pretty filthy. This is like I don't know, 20 years of or more of goop. Yeah, I had to cut this lanyard off, if you could call it a lanyard.